So I feel like we all hit a point one day in our development where we become self-aware about how ignorant we are to our own self. It goes something like this, right? When you're 13, you get your first pair of cool shoes or like a cool hoodie, right? For me, I know it was probably like Vans, like a Stan Smith Adidas, something like that. You throw them on, you're like, oh my God, like this is it. This is me. I'm a Vans guy. Like I'm the coolest guy ever. Right? And then a year or two goes by, maybe you're 15 now, maybe you're 14, and you're like, wait, I'm gonna get this other shoe. Usually it's still something super popular at the time. And you're like, okay, no, I figured it out. I'm a Jordan's guy. I don't know what other shoes would have been cool by then for me. And then, you keep doing this for a couple of years. And at some point in your development of being like, I'm this guy, I'm that guy, thinking you figure yourself out as you try on these different things. Sometimes it'll even be like hobbies, right? You'll start taking photographs and be like, I'm a photographer, like that's my thing. And then a couple years later, you discover like, oh, I like sculpting, I'm a sculptor, right? We all find this song and dance happening with our own identities, where once every year, every couple of years, you feel you figured yourself out. You feel that you found yourself in something. And then at some point, for me, I can say that it was maybe when I was 16, 17, maybe not even until 18. For some people, it might be much later, much sooner. You discover, oh wait, like, I'm just like a person who's putting on different clothes. And that sounds super simple, that sounds super basic, but I think in that there's something actually, clothes not in a literal sense, of course. You find out, like, I'm just putting on these different personas. I'm actually just trying to discover who I am, right? And I know for me what happened was for a couple years, even after I discovered this, I still didn't understand what I discovered. I still had the idea in my head of like, okay, I am young, but one day maybe I'll discover who I am 100%. And I'm using fashion here because I think it's a very direct way that we all express ourselves. And it's kind of easy for that purpose, but this process can really happen with anything. I had the idea for myself at least that someday, I'll discover the exact pair of clothes that suits me best, and then I'll look complete. Because a pet peeve I always had in mind when I was younger, and this is a really stupid thing, I'm aware, was that I'd look back on myself from a couple years ago and hate what I was wearing. And obviously this is a normal thing. I don't think anybody looks back at their high school yearbook photo and goes, man, was I so cool at 16? If you do, maybe good for you. Is that a good thing? Is that cool? I don't know. Is that a good thing if you are like that? Because for myself, I know I have never once been like, man, I looked so cool at 16. It's always been like, I look at myself from 2 years, I'll look at this recording in 2 years and be like, what the hell was I thinking with that hoodie, right? I can almost guarantee it. I literally can almost guarantee it, right? Even though that's my favorite hoodie right now. I'm sure you can tell by how much I wear in these recordings. So this being a pet peeve of mine, I was like, okay, clearly I will one day be so confident I'll figure out my thing, I'll figure out my style. And then it became direct for a couple years, where I was literally being like, oh, I wonder if that'll ever be my thing. I wonder, I'll see an older gentleman walking, I'll be like, I'll wear that someday, that'll be my thing, It was this weird process where I became, for a long time, too self-aware of how ignorant I was to my own identity, when the route to actual finding of your identity is just let it happen, of course, right? I mean, I don't think anybody's ever calculated being themselves. I think being yourself has to it's weird, right? Because you do have to be conscious enough to notice when you're not being yourself. But the process of actually discovering yourself comes from oftentimes letting go, letting go of so much, letting go of all your conceptions, being in a completely free state, right? And in the years since then, I've of course discovered the obvious answer to this. The answer I'm sure you've all have yourselves, that, oh, there's no final destination. There's no end point to what yourself looks like. And I think it's a Bob Dylan quote, maybe. Either way, shout out to Bob Dylan. I'll misattribute this quote to you. It's a good quote, Bob. Where he goes, if you're not, maybe it's David Bowie. I can't do this. I'll be here forever trying to figure out who this is. If you're not being born, you're dying, right? That's how identity works. You will never be finished. Never. If humans could live, maybe you could make the argument that you're finished the day before you die. Like, that's when you are in your final form. But I think if humans could live 1,000 years, we'd still be trying on different hats till the day we died. Because nobody's that simple. Nobody, even if you're sitting there thinking you're that simple, I guarantee you're not. We just need to keep going. You're always going to discover something new about yourself that leads to a little bit of change. And I think that allowing that to happen, leaning into your own sense of, I suppose you could say, wonder in the process of just discovering how little you know about yourself, that is the only path to like actually being content, is letting go of this idea that you'll ever be complete and just being yourself. And I think the moment you do that, in a weird way, you are complete, right? You are then yourself, because you're yourself every time. You're still you. Within you exists everything. Within me exists the guy that wants to wear this hoodie and be comfortable, and then exists the guy that's gonna come in 3 years who's like, I'm gonna wear a pink hat every day. That's me. Within you exists all those people, and none of them is more or less you. It's just the process of trying on these different things. That's what so much of what life is. And I think at first this is sort of like a Sisyphean or a Sisyphus kind of like endless toil feeling to it, of like, oh man, like I'm always gonna be, like I'll never be content in myself. I'm always gonna try something else on. And I think I can feel that way sometimes, like sometimes I think, especially if we're in moments of a little bit of crisis, it's not a comforting feeling to know, like, man, like I feel terrible about my body right now, but even if I get jacked, I'll still feel bad about something. Like, that recognition can be existential, but I think there's an aspect of it that's so freeing too, because it means that, like, tomorrow doesn't matter as nearly as much as you think it does, You can try, again, using clothes as a dumb example here, you can try on that pink hat tomorrow and, like, look like an idiot for the day. And then you'll come back home and be like, that wasn't me, and you can try out something else. I think there's something freeing about the idea that you will never truly be done, because it allows you to like live in the moment a little more. I think it allows you to be something every day, and it almost creates permission for you to also be someone you're not. Because I feel like we forget that like, in order to become who we are, you gotta be who you're not for a long time. You gotta try on different things. You gotta be weird, versions of yourself. Almost like how, like, at night to go to sleep, you gotta pretend to be asleep, like that weird process that we, for some reason, have to do to fall asleep, where you gotta close your eyes and pretend you're sleeping. To be yourself, you just gotta keep putting on different pairs of clothing until, I'm pretending like this is me, until you actually figure out, oh, it's this one. This is how it feels right now, right? And I think that only through pairing a knowledge that you will never be complete with a knowledge that, maybe not a knowledge, but a feeling or an openness to new things. Because you also can't figure out who you are if you're not open to everything. If I was like, I could never wear a pink hat, maybe I would never put on the pink hat. Maybe if I was like, let's say I was a guy who was like super into like traditional masculinity. I was like, pink hats are stupid. Pink hats are for sissies, right? And I never threw on a pink hat because of that. I might have never discovered that I'm a pink hat guy because of that. I mean, that's where denial comes from, right? That's where self-loathing comes from, is when you deny yourself of who you so clearly are. And I think that only through an openness combined with an understanding and a grace with yourself that you'll never be done can you truly discover something. And I think that comes with the openness even in the way you speak, the way your ideas come out. Like, as I do this recording, I think there's just like such a huge chance that I look back on this exact recording in a year and I'm like, man, that sucks. I did a terrible job there. But only through an understanding and a grace with myself, understand like, oh man, like that's where I was at that point. That's what I'm trying to do. Or that, I had to be there, or I had to be there to get here. Only through kind of that grace with yourself do I think you can really, I don't know, I just don't think you can make it to true self-understanding any other way. I don't think that you can continue to be born, because so many people just like want to be something, fit into a mold, and be comfortable. And I think that's a shame. I think that I do. I really just think that's a shame. I think that there's so much more in all of us if we understand that the version you today will not be the one here tomorrow. Maybe the one tomorrow will be worse. Maybe you'll put on, an outfit that you're like, this is terrible. Of course, I feel like I keep needing to emphasize this. Like, I'm not actually this just into my clothing. I'm using that more as like a metaphor. But that's the grace that you need to give yourself to continue to grow. So that's my thoughts on that. This is the painting. I don't know in what world I thought putting yellow on blue would do anything but make an ugly green, but I did, and that's why this painting came out to be this terrible ugly green. And now we're here. So this, I don't like this. I feel like it was such an interesting and cool idea that I had in my head. Like the idea for this painting was actually very cool, but it just didn't, I don't know. Like, it's not even a thing where I'm going to say like, oh, I'm not skilled enough to do it. I totally am skilled enough to do it. I could have told myself 5 minutes ago, yeah, no, if you put wet yellow onto wet blue, it's going to make an ugly green. But for some reason, we're here and this happened. So, don't check this out. It'll be on the Instagram stuff, but I would not recommend because I don't like it. I don't like this painting. So until next time, guys, gals, and pals, my name is Max Dice. This is Paint Talk episode 259. I'm here every morning, painting and talking with you all.